The fluorescent lights in the corporate office buzzed incessantly, casting a harsh glare on my desk, where I'd spent countless hours pouring my heart and soul into projects that had propelled the company forward. Today, however, that same desk felt like a prison cell. I glanced at the clock, its ticking reminding me that time was slipping away, just like my position in the company. The air was thick with the scent of burnt coffee and the faint odor of desperation, a stark contrast to the usual aroma of fresh ideas and ambition that had once filled this space. I could hear snippets of conversation from the meeting room down the hall, the sound of laughter echoing through the sterile corridors, a mocking reminder of my current isolation. In that meeting, I had presented a groundbreaking strategy that could have revolutionized our approach. I had meticulously crafted a presentation that showcased my insights and hard work, only to have it dismissed with a wave of the hand by the new CEO, a man who wore arrogance like a badge of honor. His nephew, the one who had unceremoniously taken my place, sat beside him, a smug smile plastered across his face. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks as I recalled the moment, the unexpected disappointment gnawing at my insides. "What do you think, Sam?" he had asked, his voice dripping with condescension. The laughter that followed stung like a slap. As I sat at my desk, I could hear the echoes of their laughter mingling with the sound of my own heart, a reminder of how quickly I had become irrelevant. The resentment bubbled beneath the surface, threatening to spill over. I had worked late nights, sacrificed weekends, all to build something that could now be so easily dismantled by someone who hadn't put in a fraction of the effort I had. My fingers drummed against the cold metal of my desk, each tap a silent protest against the injustice I felt. I knew I had to prove my worth not just to them but to myself. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. My partner, Nathan, had always said that I was stronger than I realized, but in that moment I felt small. The fluorescent lights flickered above me, like a malfunctioning beacon of hope. I needed a plan, something that would not only reclaim my position but also expose the incompetence of my replacement. I had to think clearly, despite the confusion clouding my mind. I glanced around the office, my colleagues oblivious to my turmoil, their focus on the new hire who had become the center of attention. A part of me felt guilty for harboring such resentment, for wanting to see him fail. But the memories of my hard work, the late nights spent perfecting presentations, and the sacrifices I had made flooded my mind, igniting a fire within me. I would not be reduced to a punchline in this corporate farce. My silence was never consent, and I was done playing the role of the forgotten employee. As I gathered my thoughts, I caught a glimpse of Nathan entering the office party, a warm smile on his face, his presence a comforting contrast to the tension in the air. He approached me, his brow furrowed with concern as he noticed my distant gaze. "You okay?" he asked softly, his voice cutting through the noise. I forced a smile, but it felt hollow. How could I explain the storm brewing inside me? How could I tell him that I was teetering on the edge of a decision that could either lead to my redemption or my downfall? The laughter from the party grew louder, and I felt a pang of isolation. This was not the camaraderie I had once cherished. No, this was a reminder of how quickly the tides could turn in a cutthroat corporate culture. I glanced back at my desk, the chaos of my thoughts swirling like the papers strewn across it. I needed to act, and I needed to act fast. The introduction of the new hire had not just shifted the dynamics of the office, it had ignited a fire within me, one that I could no longer ignore. The stakes were high, and I was ready to play my hand, no matter the cost. The moment I walked through the door of my apartment, the familiar scent of vanilla and sandalwood enveloped me, a stark contrast to the sterile smell of the corporate office I had just left. I tossed my keys onto the console table, the clatter echoing in the quiet space. My home, once a refuge, felt more like a reminder of my failures. I kicked off my shoes, the soft carpet cushioning my feet as I padded toward the kitchen, where Nathan was preparing dinner. The gentle sizzle of garlic and olive oil filled the air, and I took a moment to inhale deeply, trying to ground myself. "How was your day?" Nathan asked, glancing over his shoulder, his brow slightly wrinkled in concern. I could see the warmth in his eyes, but it did little to ease the tension coiling in my stomach. "It was interesting," I replied, forcing a smile as I leaned against the counter, the cool granite a stark reminder of my inner turmoil. I thought back to the meeting earlier where I had laid bare my ideas, only to watch them be dismissed as if they were trivial. The frustration bubbled beneath the surface, and I felt the weight of the day's events pressing down on me. I turned my gaze to the window, where the city lights flickered like distant stars, a beautiful illusion masking the chaos I felt inside. Memories of late nights spent crafting reports and strategizing with my team flashed through my mind. I had poured my heart into this company, only to be replaced by someone whose qualifications seemed as thin as the air I was breathing. The thought of my hard work being overshadowed by incompetence ignited a fire within me. You know, I saw Rachel today at the office party, Nathan continued, stirring the sauce. She said you looked, well, not yourself. I let out a short laugh, a sound devoid of humor. Not myself, that's one way to put it. I felt like a ghost drifting through my own life, invisible and irrelevant. Rachel always knows how to put things in a way that stings just right. The memory of Rachel's concerned expression at the party crossed my mind. She had approached me, her eyes wide with worry, but I had brushed her off, unwilling to share the storm brewing inside. "What's wrong, Sam?" she had asked, her voice tinged with concern. But how could I explain to her that I felt like the foundation of my career was crumbling beneath me? I was losing my grip on everything I had worked for, and the thought made my chest tighten. "Maybe you should talk to someone about it," Nathan suggested, his voice soft yet firm. "You can't keep bottling this up, it's not healthy." I felt a surge of irritation at his words. I didn't need a therapist, I needed justice. The tension between us was palpable, and I could see the unease in his eyes as he reached for a wooden spoon, stirring the sauce with a deliberate slowness, as if contemplating his next words. "I just want to help you find peace, Samantha," he said finally, his tone gentle but insistent. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks as I turned away, unwilling to meet his gaze. How could he understand? He wasn't the one who had sacrificed everything only to be cast aside. I felt torn between my love for him and the anger that bubbled just beneath the surface. "I appreciate it, really, but I can handle this," I replied, my voice sharper than I intended. I could see the disappointment flicker in his eyes, and it made my heart ache. Nathan always believed in me, but I was starting to lose faith in myself. The evening dragged on, filled with the clinking of dishes and the muted hum of the television in the background. But my mind was elsewhere, consumed by thoughts of revenge and reclamation. I had to do something. I needed to reclaim my position and expose the incompetence that had taken root in the company. I could feel the determination swelling within me, pushing back against the frustration. I wouldn't go down without a fight. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I replayed the events of the day over and over in my mind. The laughter in the meeting room, the smirk on the new hire's face, the dismissive wave of the CEO's hand. My heart raced with a mix of anger and resolve. I would not allow myself to be forgotten. I would take back what was rightfully mine, and this time I would do it on my terms. My silence would not be consent, and I was ready to make my move. The darkness of the room felt suffocating, but it also fueled my determination. I would rise from the ashes of betrayal, and I would make them see my worth. I would show them that the new hire's arrogance was nothing compared to my experience and dedication. This was just the beginning. The chaos in the office felt palpable, like a live wire threatening to spark at any moment. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, illuminating faces that were either furrowed in concentration or twisted in laughter as they celebrated the new regime. I stood frozen, a mere observer in this shifting landscape, surrounded by the hum of frantic typing and the distant ringing of phones. My workspace, once a sanctuary of creativity, now felt like a neglected corner, cluttered with half-finished projects and documents that had lost their value. The scent of burnt coffee mixed with the distinct odor of printer ink, creating an atmosphere thick with tension and disappointment. As I stared at my computer screen, the bright cursor blinked back at me, taunting me with its indifference. I had diligently prepared a presentation that morning, one that I believed would highlight my contributions and restore my standing within the company. The moment I walked into the meeting room, however, those hopes crumbled. I could feel the weight of their expectations pressing down on me, especially the gaze of the new CEO, who seemed to relish in my discomfort. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, looking as if my words were merely an inconvenience he had to endure. "We'll hear from you now, Samantha," he said dismissively, a hint of amusement in his tone. I could see his nephew smirking beside him, an unqualified placeholder in a position I had fought tooth and nail for. As I spoke, the words felt heavy, burdened by their skepticism. I highlighted key strategies and data points, but they barely registered. Instead, I was met with a condescending nod from the CEO, who appeared more interested in his phone than my presentation. His lack of attention was a bitter reminder of how quickly I had been deemed irrelevant. The moment I finished, an awkward silence filled the room. It was as if my contributions had evaporated into thin air. "Thanks for that, Samantha. I think we'll manage without your insights moving forward," the CEO said, waving his hand dismissively as if I were merely a footnote in a report. The laughter that followed from the others felt like daggers piercing through my resolve, solidifying my feelings of betrayal. My heart raced not because of fear but from the indignation that surged within me. I would not let this slide. The heat of anger coursed through me, and as I exited the meeting I could feel my pulse quickening, each beat echoing in my ears. I walked back to my desk, shoulders tense, the laughter fading but leaving behind a bitter taste of humiliation. I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms as I confronted the reality of my situation. How could they choose someone so unqualified, someone who had done little more than coast on the coattails of nepotism? The anger boiled within me, threatening to spill over. Back at my desk, I glanced at my computer screen, the files I had meticulously organized now feeling like a cruel joke. Just as I began to collect my thoughts, a notification blinked ominously, a message from the CEO. "Samantha, please come to my office. We need to discuss the restructuring of your projects." My stomach dropped as I made my way to his office, each step heavy with foreboding. The air grew thicker as I approached, the faint hum of the office fading into an eerie silence. I knocked and entered, bracing myself for the conversation that would undoubtedly follow. The CEO was seated behind a large, imposing desk, his expression unreadable. The nephew sat nearby, a smug grin plastered on his face, as if he were in on some joke I wasn't privy to. "Samantha, I hope you understand that changes are necessary for the growth of the company," he began, his voice dripping with insincerity. I nodded, forcing myself to remain calm, but inside I was seething. "We've decided to streamline our operations, and as part of that, we're going to be reallocating your files. Your projects will be handled by others moving forward." I felt my world tilt on its axis. "What do you mean?" "You can't just take my work," I protested, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay composed. "These projects are my responsibility." The CEO waved his hand again as if dismissing a fly. "It's nothing personal, Samantha. We believe this is for the best. You've had your time, but we need fresh perspectives now. You'll have a chance to transition into a new role." "Fresh perspectives? You mean someone who can't even grasp the basics of our strategy?" I shot back, my frustration boiling over. The nephew chuckled, and my heart raced with the urge to retaliate, to expose the incompetence that had infiltrated our company. "I suggest you take this opportunity to focus on your future," the CEO replied, an icy smile on his face. "We're letting you go, effective immediately." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I felt as if the ground had been pulled out from beneath me. My mind raced with disbelief and fury. I had dedicated years to this company, sacrificed my time and energy, only to be discarded like yesterday's news. I turned to leave, my heart pounding in my chest, but as I reached for the door handle, I glanced back at them, at the CEO and his smug nephew. "This ends with me," I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I stormed out, the chaos of the office swirling around me as I fought to maintain my composure. I could feel the weight of their laughter lingering in the air, but I was determined not to let it crush me. I would find a way to reclaim my position, to expose their incompetence. I would not be silenced. Back at my desk, a wave of despair washed over me as I stared at the empty screen. Then the notification pinged again. My heart sank as I saw it. The nephew had accessed my files, the very ones I had poured my life into. I rushed to my computer, but it was too late. The screen flashed a message: "Files deleted." Panic surged through me as chaos erupted in the office. Colleagues shouted, and the sound of keyboards clattered as confusion set in. My breath quickened and I felt the walls closing in. I needed to act, I needed control. I could not let this moment define me. The chaos around me faded as I focused on a singular thought: I would make them pay for their arrogance. I gathered my belongings, heart racing, resolved to devise a plan that would allow me to reclaim my narrative. The flickering fluorescent lights above seemed to echo my determination as I stepped into the hallway, ready to turn this injustice into an opportunity for redemption. The world may have turned its back on me, but I would rise from the ashes of betrayal and make them see my worth. The stage was set for my revenge, and I was ready to take on the challenge with newfound resolve. The air in my apartment felt heavy as I paced the living room, the scent of sandalwood from the candle flickering on the table, barely cutting through the tension that had settled in my chest. Nathan was in the kitchen, the clatter of pots a distant reminder that he was trying to create a semblance of normalcy, but my thoughts were miles away. I could hear my heart beating like a war drum, each thump a reminder of the chaos that had erupted at the office. The images of my files disappearing flashed in my mind like a cruel slideshow, fueling my resolve. I sat down heavily on the couch, running a hand through my hair as memories of that day washed over me. The moment I saw the notification on my screen, my stomach had dropped. How could he? The nephew had taken everything away from me with just a few clicks. The anger bubbled within me, mingling with a sense of betrayal that felt like a weight pressing down on my shoulders. I picked up my phone, scrolling through the contacts, my finger hovering over Rachel's name. Would she understand? Would she think I was overreacting? "Dinner's almost ready," Nathan called from the kitchen, his voice cheerful and oblivious to the storm raging inside me. The warmth of his tone contrasted sharply with the coldness I felt creeping in. I could picture him, his apron tied around his waist, cooking up a meal while I was plotting my next move against the very company we had once celebrated together. I shook my head, a bitter smile creeping across my lips. I was about to embark on a mission, and he wouldn't understand. As I stared at the walls adorned with our memories, my thoughts drifted back to the office, the laughter that echoed in the hallways, the sound of keyboards tapping away, and the underlying tension that had taken root since the new hire's arrival. I could already picture the smug expression on his face, the way he relished the chaos he had created. He had no idea what he was playing with. I wouldn't let him get away with it. Just then my phone buzzed, jolting me from my thoughts. It was a message from Rachel, her words brimming with concern. "Hey Sam, you okay? I heard about the files. Want to talk?" I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the screen. I could vent to her, share my frustrations, but deep down I knew that wouldn't change anything. Talking wouldn't bring my files back. I bit my lip, torn between the urge to reach out for support and the need to handle this on my own. I could feel Nathan's presence in the kitchen, the sound of his cooking a gentle reminder of what I stood to lose. I needed to channel this feeling into something productive. I would devise a plan, a calculated response to reclaim what was rightfully mine. As the evening wore on, I paced the room, formulating a strategy in my mind. I envisioned myself confronting the CEO, laying bare the incompetency of his nephew, and reclaiming my position. The thought sent a rush of adrenaline through me. I needed evidence, something that would expose their negligence and arrogance. The chaos they had unleashed could serve as my ally if I played my cards right. With newfound determination, I grabbed a notepad from the coffee table and began jotting down ideas. I would gather information, document everything that had gone wrong since the nephew took over. I could compile reports, witness accounts, anything that would showcase the incompetence that permeated the office. The thrill of the chase ignited a fire within me, and I felt alive with purpose. Later that night, as Nathan and I sat down to dinner, I forced myself to engage in light conversation, but my mind was elsewhere. I could see the worry etched on his face, the way he studied me as if searching for signs of my inner turmoil. But I wore my mask well, nodding and smiling at the appropriate moments, all while plotting the course of my revenge. "You seem a bit distant, Sam. Is everything okay?" Nathan asked, concern lacing his voice. I looked up, meeting his gaze, and for a moment I felt a pang of guilt. He cared, and I knew he wanted to help, but this was something I had to do alone. "Just tired, I guess. Work has been challenging," I replied, forcing a smile. The lie felt heavy on my tongue, but I had to keep my plans close. I couldn't risk anyone else getting involved, especially not Nathan. Once dinner was finished, I retreated to the living room, my sanctuary of thoughts. I could hear Nathan clearing the dishes in the kitchen, the clinking of plates a soothing sound against the chaos brewing in my mind. I needed to act decisively, and soon. The confrontation with the CEO would be my moment to shine, to reclaim my power and restore my dignity. The next day, I returned to the office with a renewed sense of purpose. I was armed with notes, a plan meticulously crafted from my frustrations and the chaos I had witnessed. I could feel the weight of my determination pressing down on me, urging me forward. I walked through the office with my head held high, ready to confront the very people who had tried to erase my contributions. In the meeting room, I stood before the CEO and the nephew, my heart racing. I began to lay out the evidence I had gathered, each point a testament to my dedication and the failures that had resulted from their incompetence. The room fell silent, and I could see the surprise etched on their faces as I spoke with conviction. This was my moment, and I would not be silenced. As I concluded my presentation, I could feel the tension in the room shift. The CEO's expression hardened, and I knew I had struck a nerve. I had taken control of the narrative, and I wouldn't back down. "You may think you can erase my contributions, but I will always find a way to reclaim what is rightfully mine," I declared, my voice steady despite the chaos swirling around us. The confrontation was just the beginning, but I could already sense the impact of my words. This was my fight, and I was ready to see it through. I would turn the tables, and they would understand the consequences of their arrogance. The stakes had never been higher, but I was determined to rise to the challenge, no matter the cost. The office felt different now, heavy with an undercurrent of tension that permeated the air. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly overhead, casting a stark artificial glow on the faces of my colleagues as they hurried past, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I sat at my desk, staring at the computer screen, my mind racing. The memories of the confrontation with the CEO and his nephew lingered, fueling my desire to reclaim my position. But now I was faced with a different challenge. The desire to find peace amidst the chaos. I took a deep breath, the scent of burnt coffee wafting through the air, mingling with the faint aroma of printer ink. I needed to try to connect with Nathan and Rachel to seek solace and support in this turbulent time. I glanced at my phone, the screen lighting up with a message from Rachel, asking if I wanted to meet for coffee. Perhaps this was the lifeline I needed, a chance to bridge the gap between my desires for revenge and the need for understanding. As I walked into the break room, the clinking of ceramic mugs and the soft chatter of colleagues surrounded me. I could see Nathan seated at a table, his brow furrowed in concentration as he scribbled notes for a project. His presence brought me a flicker of warmth, a reminder of the support he had always offered. I approached him, my heart pounding with hope and uncertainty. "Mind if I join you?" I asked, trying to mask the tumult of emotions swirling within me. He looked up, a smile breaking through his focused expression. "Of course, Sam, I was just thinking about you. How are you holding up?" His concern was palpable and it made my chest tighten. I could feel the weight of my struggles pressing down on me, but I wanted to convey a sense of calm, to show him that I was working toward healing. "I've been reflecting a lot, about the meeting and everything that happened. I think I might be able to work things out with the CEO," I said, my voice steady despite the uncertainty creeping in. Nathan raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched on his face. "Really? I'm glad you're feeling hopeful, but they might not be receptive to your ideas. The atmosphere has shifted drastically." His words stung, but I couldn't let doubt seep in. He had always been the voice of reason, but this time I needed him to believe in me. I took a moment to gather my thoughts, recalling the moments of camaraderie we had shared in the past, the times when we had celebrated victories together. "I just feel like if I approach them with a calm demeanor, maybe I can bridge the gap. They've been so caught up in their ego, maybe they just need to see things from a different perspective," I said, hoping to convince both him and myself. Nathan nodded slowly, but I could see the concern swirling in his eyes. "I just don't want to see you hurt again, Samantha. I know how much this means to you, but sometimes letting go can be more powerful than fighting back." His words hung in the air, a heavy reminder of the path I was contemplating. For a brief moment, I felt the urge to abandon my plans for revenge and embrace the idea of peace. But then, I recalled the laughter of my colleagues during the meeting, the dismissive wave of the CEO's hand, and the smug smile on his nephew's face. The anger bubbled to the surface again, threatening to drown out any flicker of hope. As Nathan and I talked, I glanced around the room, spotting Rachel as she entered, her vibrant energy lighting up the dull atmosphere. She approached us, a broad smile on her face, but it faltered as she took in my demeanor. "You okay, Sam? You look a bit intense," she said, her voice laced with concern. I forced a smile, trying to mask the turmoil within. "I'm fine, just trying to figure things out. I've been thinking about talking to the CEO again." I could see Rachel's eyes widen in surprise. "Are you sure that's a good idea?" "After everything that happened, I think it's worth a shot," I replied, a tinge of defiance creeping into my voice. "I want to show them that I can still contribute, that I'm not just going to fade into the background." I felt the fire ignite within me again, pushing against the despair that threatened to take hold. Rachel exchanged a glance with Nathan, and I could see the unspoken concern between them. "Just promise us you'll be careful," she finally said, her tone gentle but firm. "We don't want you to get hurt again. You're stronger than you think, but don't forget that you have support too." Their concern warmed my heart, but the weight of my ambitions pressed heavily on my shoulders. I knew I had to try one last time to find common ground with the CEO and his nephew. I needed to approach them with a different strategy, perhaps one that would appeal to their egos while asserting my worth. As the day wore on, I felt the flicker of hope dimming, replaced by the harsh reality of the corporate landscape. The stubbornness of the company loomed large, and I found myself questioning whether I could truly reconcile with the very people who had dismissed my contributions so easily. I returned to my desk, staring at the blank screen, feeling the despair creeping in. The walls felt as if they were closing in, and my resolve began to waver. Despite the support of Nathan and Rachel, the weight of my situation pressed down on me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my attempts at peace were futile. The day ended without resolution, and as I left the office, a heavy silence enveloped me. The chaos of the day had yielded no sense of closure, only a deepening frustration. I knew I had to act to reclaim my narrative, but the path forward felt shrouded in uncertainty. I could sense the finality of my attempts at peace, the looming decision about how to move forward weighing heavily on my heart. I was determined to find a way, but the stakes had never felt higher. Would I embrace revenge or seek to mend the fractures within the company? The choice was mine to make, and I knew that whatever path I chose would define not only my future, but also the very essence of my integrity. The office buzzed with frenetic energy, the fluorescent lights casting an unflattering glare as I navigated through the chaos. The sound of keyboards clattering filled the air, punctuated by hushed whispers and the occasional burst of laughter, each note a reminder of my growing isolation. My heart raced, a steady drumbeat echoing my mounting frustration as I approached my desk, bracing myself for the inevitable. I had just witnessed the culmination of my hard work being obliterated with a few careless clicks, and the weight of betrayal pressed down on me like a leaden blanket. The moment I sat down, I felt the tension in the air shift. My computer screen glowed ominously as a notification pinged, a message from the CEO. "Samantha, please come to my office. We need to discuss the restructuring of your projects." My stomach twisted in knots as I read the words, a sense of dread washing over me. How could he even entertain the thought of restructuring my work without so much as a conversation about my contributions? I forced myself to rise, each step to his office heavy with the weight of impending confrontation. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, mirroring the turmoil inside me. My mind raced with thoughts of the new hire, the nephew whose very presence embodied the incompetence I had come to despise. I could see him lounging in the corner of the CEO's office, a smug smile etched across his face, as if he were aware of the chaos he had unleashed. As I knocked on the door, the sound echoed in the silence that enveloped me. The CEO gestured for me to enter, his expression unreadable as I stepped into the room. The air was thick with tension, an electric current coursing between us. "Samantha, sit down," he said, his voice devoid of warmth. I obeyed, forcing myself to meet his gaze, determined to hold my ground. "We're making some changes to the team structure, and I need you to understand that your files will be reassigned. Your projects will be handled by someone else moving forward," he began, each word dripping with insincerity. My heart raced, a mix of disbelief and outrage surging through me. "You can't just take my work," I blurted out, my voice rising despite my efforts to remain composed. My pulse quickened as I felt the heat rising to my cheeks. "These projects are my responsibility. I've poured my heart and soul into them." He waved his hand dismissively as if I were merely an annoyance. "It's nothing personal, we believe this is for the best. You'll have a chance to transition into a new role," he replied, the condescension evident in his tone. As the words sank in, a wave of fury surged through me, igniting a fire I had tried to contain. I shot back, "A new role? You mean a position where I am sidelined? You think you can just erase my contributions because of your nephew's incompetence?" The smug grin on the nephew's face faded as I locked eyes with the CEO, my resolve solidifying. I could feel the chaos of the office swirling around me, but in that moment I was focused, determined not to let them belittle my existence any longer. "This ends with me," I declared, my voice steady, though my heart raced with adrenaline. I stormed out, the laughter from the office ringing in my ears, a bitter reminder of my fight. I would not let this moment define me. I would reclaim my narrative. I would expose their incompetence and remind them of the value I brought to this company. The chaos they had unleashed would serve as my ally, and I was ready to devise a plan that would turn the tides in my favor. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me as I gathered my belongings, the determination swelling within me. I would rise from this betrayal, and they would soon understand the consequences of underestimating my resolve. My silence would not be consent. I was ready for the battle ahead, and I would not back down until I had regained control of my story. The air in my apartment felt charged as I paced the living room, the soft glow of the candle flickering on the table casting dancing shadows on the walls. The scent of sandalwood enveloped me, its warmth contrasting sharply with the tension coiling in my chest. Nathan was in the kitchen, the rhythmic clatter of pots and pans a distant reminder of the normalcy I desperately longed for. But my mind was elsewhere, consumed by thoughts of how to reclaim my position and expose the incompetence that had taken root in the company. I sank heavily onto the couch, running a hand through my hair as memories of the day's chaos flooded my mind. The image of my files disappearing on that screen played like a haunting reel, fueling the fire of betrayal within me. I needed to channel this anger into a plan, a calculated response that would allow me to rise from the ashes of my dismissal. The nephew had made a grave mistake, and I would ensure he paid for it. Picking up my phone, I scrolled through my contacts, hesitating over Rachel's name. Would she understand the depth of my betrayal? Would venting to her change anything? I shook my head, knowing that I needed to act, not just talk. I needed to take control of my narrative before it slipped further away. As I paced the living room, the flickering candlelight illuminated my determination. I envisioned myself confronting the CEO, laying bare the chaos that had erupted under his nephew's leadership. I would gather evidence, document everything that had gone wrong since the transition. The thought sent a rush of adrenaline through me, igniting a sense of purpose that had been dormant for far too long. Later, as Nathan called me to dinner, I forced myself to engage in light conversation, but my mind was racing with plans. The tension between us was palpable. I could see the concern etched on his face as he glanced up from the stove. I wore my mask well, nodding and smiling at the appropriate moments, but inside I was plotting my course of action. "You seem a bit distant, Sam. Is everything okay?" Nathan asked, his voice laced with concern. The warmth of his words made my heart ache. He cared, but this was my battle to fight. Just tired, I guess. Work has been challenging, I replied, feeling the weight of my own lies settle in my stomach. I needed to keep my plans close to my chest. I couldn't risk anyone else getting involved, especially not Nathan. After dinner, I retreated to the living room, my sanctuary of thoughts. The walls adorned with our memories felt suffocating, but they also fueled my resolve. This was my chance to reclaim my power, to expose the arrogance that had infiltrated the very heart of the company I had built. I grabbed a notepad and began jotting down ideas. I would compile reports, gather witness accounts, and document the incompetence that had seeped into our work environment since the nephew took over. The thrill of the chase ignited a fire within me, and I felt alive with purpose. The next day, I returned to the office with my notes in hand, ready to confront the challenges ahead. I would walk into that meeting room with confidence, armed with evidence that would not only validate my worth but also expose the flaws in their leadership. This was my moment to shine, to reclaim my narrative. I would not allow their arrogance to define me any longer. I would rise from the ashes of betrayal and show them that I was a force to be reckoned with. The stage was set, and I was ready to execute my plan, no matter the cost. The fluorescent lights in the CEO's office hummed with a sterile intensity, illuminating the tense atmosphere as I stood across from him, my heart pounding with anticipation. The air was thick with the scent of polished wood and expensive cologne, a stark contrast to the chaos that had consumed my life since the nephew had taken over. I had spent the previous night meticulously gathering evidence, organizing documents and emails that laid bare the incompetence that had run rampant under the new management. Each piece of paper felt like a weapon ready to fire in my defense. As I took a deep breath, I could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on me. The CEO leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a smug expression on his face that made my stomach churn. I could see his nephew lurking in the shadows, a sly grin plastered across his face, as if he relished the thought of my impending defeat. But today would be different. I had come prepared, and I refused to be dismissed again. "Samantha, I'm glad you could make it," the CEO said, his tone dripping with condescension. "What's this about? More complaints?" His dismissive attitude ignited a fire within me, fueling my determination to confront the arrogance that had so easily uprooted my contributions. I stepped forward, a surge of confidence washing over me. "Actually, I'm here to discuss the recent failures in project management since the restructuring. I have documented evidence to support my claims," I replied, my voice steady despite the tremor of anxiety that coursed through me. The CEO raised an eyebrow, surprise flickering momentarily across his features. "Evidence? You think you can come in here and prove something?" He scoffed, but I pressed on, ignoring his derision. I pulled out the carefully organized folder from my bag and placed it on the sleek desk, the sound echoing in the quiet room like a gunshot. "Let's start with the budget overruns in the last quarter. Here's a detailed report showing how the new management has misallocated resources, leading to a significant waste of funds. And this email thread, it outlines the complaints from the team regarding the lack of direction since the transition. You can see the frustration mounting, and it's all documented here," I asserted, my voice gaining strength with each point I made. The CEO's expression shifted, the smugness faded as he rifled through the papers, his brows knitting together in concentration. I could see the gears turning in his mind, doubt creeping in as he realized the gravity of what I was presenting. The atmosphere thickened with tension, and I knew I had him on the ropes. The nephew shifted uncomfortably, his smirk faltering as he caught my gaze. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me, pushing me to continue. "And let's not forget the incident where your nephew deleted critical files, my files, leading to chaos in the office. This document outlines the timeline of events and the repercussions that followed. Can you explain how this is acceptable for someone in a position of leadership?" I challenged, my heart racing with the thrill of finally having my voice heard. The CEO's face darkened, the mask of arrogance slipping as he struggled to maintain control of the situation. "You're overreacting, Samantha. We're all adjusting to the changes. This is part of growth and we need to move forward," he said, trying to regain his footing. "Move forward," I echoed, my voice rising, "at the cost of my career and the integrity of the company. I've poured my heart into this place and now I'm being replaced by someone who can't even manage a basic project. This isn't growth, it's negligence." The words spilled out of me like a dam breaking, each one a testament to the frustration and anger I had contained for far too long. The room was silent, the tension palpable as I stared the CEO down, daring him to dismiss me again. I could feel my pulse quickening, the adrenaline pumping through my veins as I stood my ground. This was my moment and I refused to back down. With a final flourish, I presented the last document, a detailed plan outlining how to rectify the issues at hand, demonstrating my commitment to the company's success. I had done my homework and I was ready to prove my worth. Give me a chance to lead this project, and I promise to restore the integrity and efficiency that has been lost. I know this company inside and out, and I will not let it go down without a fight, I declared, my voice firm and unwavering. The CEO looked up from the folder, his expression now a blend of surprise and irritation. You think you can just walk in here and demand your position back? I met his gaze, unflinching. I'm not demanding anything. I'm here to fight for what's right and to remind you that I am an asset to this company. I will not be sidelined by incompetence or nepotism. This ends with me. The silence that followed felt heavy, and I could sense the shift in the room. I had laid my cards on the table, and now it was up to them to decide how to respond. I felt the tension in my chest begin to ease, replaced by a sense of satisfaction. Whatever happened next, I had taken a stand. As I turned to leave, I caught the CEO's eye one last time, and in that moment, I knew I had planted the seeds of doubt. I would not be forgotten. I would rise from the ashes of betrayal, and I would make them see my worth. The stakes were high, but I was ready to face whatever came next. I had executed my plan, and now it was time to see the aftermath unfold. The atmosphere in the office shifted dramatically after my confrontation. Whispers filled the air, a cacophony of disbelief and speculation as colleagues exchanged glances, some with admiration, others with skepticism. The fluorescent lights buzzed above me, casting a sterile glow that felt almost comforting in the wake of the chaos. I had laid bare the failures of the new management, and while the CEO attempted to downplay my evidence, I could see the cracks beginning to show in his confidence. In the days that followed, the repercussions of my bold stand began to unfold. I received messages from colleagues, some expressing their support, while others were wary of the potential backlash. The scent of burnt coffee wafted through the air, mingling with the faint hint of tension that lingered. I knew I had struck a nerve, and the realization filled me with both apprehension and exhilaration. I could feel the weight of my actions pressing down on me, but I also sensed a flicker of hope. One afternoon, as I sat at my desk, I received a call from the CEO's office. My heart raced as I answered, unsure of what to expect. "Samantha, can you come to my office? We need to discuss your proposal further." The CEO's voice was clipped, but there was an undertone of urgency that intrigued me. I straightened my posture, a mix of fear and excitement coursing through me. This could be the opportunity I had been waiting for. Walking into his office, I was struck by the tension in the air. The CEO was seated behind his desk, his expression inscrutable. The nephew sat nearby, his demeanor noticeably more subdued. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of the evidence I had gathered. This was my chance to solidify my position and propose a plan that could steer the company back on course. "I've reviewed your documents, Samantha," the CEO began, his tone more serious than before. "There are indeed issues we need to address. I appreciate your initiative in bringing these matters to light, but we need a way forward that benefits everyone involved." My heart raced as I listened. I had expected pushback, but instead I was being offered a chance to collaborate. The meeting progressed, and I outlined a detailed plan to rectify the recent failures. The air felt electric as I spoke, my confidence growing with each point I made. The CEO nodded along, a flicker of respect crossing his face. I could see the nephew shifting uncomfortably, his earlier bravado evaporating as I laid out my vision for the future of the company. After what felt like an eternity, the CEO leaned back in his chair, a contemplative look on his face. "We're willing to give you a role in leading the turnaround efforts, but I need you to understand that this is a team effort. You'll be working closely with the new management to ensure a smooth transition. Can you do that?" I felt a wave of relief wash over me, mixed with cautious optimism. "Yes, I can do that. I'm committed to restoring our standards and ensuring that we don't repeat the same mistakes." The deal was struck, and as I left the office, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The chaos had birthed an opportunity, and I was determined to seize it. Back at home, the familiar scent of sandalwood enveloped me as I walked through the door. Nathan looked up from the kitchen, his face lighting up with a smile. "How did it go?" he asked, a hint of concern lacing his voice. I returned his smile, feeling a sense of peace settle within me. "It went better than expected. I think I may have a chance to turn things around." I felt a warmth spread through me as I shared my news with him, the burden of uncertainty beginning to fade. In the weeks that followed, I immersed myself in the work, collaborating with the new management and implementing changes that would restore the company's integrity. The atmosphere in the office began to shift again, this time towards one of collaboration and determination. I could feel the support of my colleagues as they rallied around our shared goals. The laughter that had once felt mocking now echoed with renewed purpose. As I navigated this new chapter, I realized that I had transformed my anger into something constructive. The desire for revenge had morphed into a commitment to excellence, and I found solace in the fact that I was no longer a mere observer in my own life. I had reclaimed my narrative and was forging a path towards a brighter future, not just for myself but for everyone around me. I had learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from vengeance but from the courage to rise above and create change. The journey had been tumultuous, filled with challenges and moments of doubt, but it had ultimately led me to a place of empowerment. As I reflected on everything that had transpired, I felt a profound sense of closure wash over me. I was ready to move forward, leaving behind the shadows of betrayal and embracing the light of possibility. The air in my apartment felt lighter, infused with the familiar scent of sandalwood that wafted from the candle flickering on the table. I sank into the comfort of the couch, the fabric soft against my skin, as I reflected on the whirlwind of events that had led me here. My heart swelled with a mix of satisfaction and hope. I had transformed my anger into a force for good, not only reclaiming my position, but also revitalizing the company I had once feared would crumble under incompetence. The laughter that echoed through the office now resonated with camaraderie, a testament to the changes we had implemented together. I could almost hear the whispers of my colleagues, now filled with admiration rather than skepticism, as they rallied around our shared vision for the future. In the weeks that followed, I began to document my journey, capturing the triumphs and trials that had shaped my path. I decided to share my story on a YouTube channel, hoping to inspire others who felt marginalized in their workplaces. Each video became a cathartic release, allowing me to connect with viewers who had faced similar challenges. I reveled in the comments that poured in, each one a reminder that I was not alone and that my experiences resonated with many. As I prepared to record my next episode, I felt a surge of excitement. This was more than just a channel, it was a community of support and empowerment. I wanted to encourage others to stand up for themselves, to reclaim their narratives amidst adversity. I took a deep breath, my heart racing with anticipation. This was my moment to give back, to share the lessons I had learned along the way. I smiled, knowing that I had turned my pain into purpose. Now I invite you to join me on this journey. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell.